Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, it's been a hell of a day. Temperature is cooler right now. I guess it's in the 70s. I'm not sure. It's not muggy and it's very sunny, as you can see. My partner, Jim Campbell, and I were both listening in the background today to the craziness on the Hill and to the testimony of Cassidy Hutchinson, who worked for the Chief of Staff, Meadows, who you may remember was held by Congress in contempt, but our Attorney General can't figure that out. And I don't want to misrepresent anything that Jim said, but Jim and I think agreed on this one point. How could you accumulate this information so inculpatory of this president who shows himself to be a beast and not go forward with prosecution? And my personal thinking, maybe more narrowly than Jim, because I just don't want to presume upon his opinions. The two of us have been very politically active our whole life, and we're both, I think, damn good trial lawyers. So Raskin, whom I think is a first-rate mind, who understands criminal law in the way few do, has been saying publicly that, I don't know if we should be prosecuting. That's not our job, and the separation of powers and so forth. And as much as I respect him, admire him, think he's a real contributor as a public servant, I couldn't disagree more with the notion that he and my former boss, Zoe Lofgren, have, that they don't feel there's any obligation to say, we had a home invasion and Justice Department, you got to do something about it, particularly when they have managed through all the very many interviews and accumulations of documents and probably informants. They have created this massive material that shows stronger than anything one could have asked that we had a president who was prepared to execute a coup in order to be put in office again, though he lost the election for which he ran. It's just remarkable. So, well, today, consider what we saw or heard. We have Cassidy saying that when she's sitting around and paying attention to people, she is aware that on the day of the insurrection, January 6th, that Trump didn't want anybody checked for weapons because nobody wants him with a weapon. Whoa. And also he wanted the numbers. And then he said he was going to go to the Hill. And nobody in his entourage, as corrupt as they may be, thought that was a good idea. But he pushed to do it. And at one point he tried to take over the steering wheel of the car from the Secret Service and apparently hit him in the clavicle. And but he was overcome and not allowed to do that. When he was back at the White House, like a 3-year-old, he's throwing food around. I let all you psychologists and psychiatrists deal with that part of it. But he's throwing food at the wall and breaking plates. And then they try to get him to tell the people to stop, and he doesn't want to do it. And finally he said he loves them all, and he thought about giving them a pardon. Get the idea. So, and then, of course, we have Rudy Giuliani and Meadows lining up afterwards and say, what do you think about giving us a pardon? And to some surprise, we have people over at Fox writing and sending text messages to Trump saying, you risk to lose your legacy. Well, for me, he has no legacy to lose. His legacy was a very sad chapter in American history. And luckily, those people who crawled over glass to keep him out of office, and then those people who literally risked their lives to save the Capitol, and Vice President Pence, who did what he could to follow the letter of the law in the Constitution and in the statute. So that's what we have. So what should we do going forward? We have to tell this committee that it is not enough to cure our curiosity by letting us know the details that we assume exist, from the West Wing through outsiders contributing, even these crazy white supremacist gangs, and then maybe even 100 people on the Hill, including senators and members of Congress. Historically, if we don't act upon this, where is our legitimacy as a government of laws, not of men? What does it mean if we follow no law that we can say we're not inviting chaos? If there is no law, isn't it then the law of the club? Isn't it about violence? Isn't it about power and might and not about, to borrow from, historical examples on Broadway, what's right as opposed to might, you know? And I'm not going to break out and sing you a Broadway tune, but the tune that it seems to me condemns all these Republicans and any leader who persists in their support is the tune written by Eastman, a bogus theory that A, there was corruption when there wasn't, and we have the former Attorney General, whom I have no use for bar, and we have the acting Attorney General who told them there was none either. And the second part of it is that Eastman said, well, we can ask them to count electors, but there were no electors in opposition except the ones that they created fraudulently. So this is like the major grift in a political sense of all time, hearkening to fears of a democracy failing because, in the words of Benjamin Franklin, you have a republic if you can keep it. And the failure to prosecute with this kind of evidence is the failure of a democracy. Because once we are afraid of bullies and people who break the law, we are no longer a government of laws, of a constitution, and we're not a place where people may be peaceful and contribute to the common weal. The standard of civilization is how we treat our own, and that includes criminals. And this gang of criminals has to be punished. And just like in Watergate, we had lawyers who ended up at the defense table as defendants and other lawyers as prosecutors putting them away. And we've heard some of those people compare that with this, and they say this is worse. Well, I think it is too. And I've seen enough in my lifetime to believe that the fact that I and many others, and you, I bet, because you're listening and we're talking, believe this is no way for our country to go forward. So we have to do anything. It's always up to we the people, and this is another example of it, and the ballot box is part of it. But before we get there, we have to convince this committee to take the information they have and to use it for reasons other than to cure our curiosity about how evil Trump and his cohorts were. So I say that from my cathedral of trees, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.